For hundreds of years, the Brits and the French alike fantasized about a tunnel that could connect mainland Europe to the British Isles. Even before cars or trains, they sketched proposals for terrifying, horse-powered tunnels that would drown everyone if there was so much as a light storm in the English Channel. They tried digging one such tunnel in the 1880s, and then stopped because the Brits realized they didn't want French people coming over, and then they tried again in the 1920s, before the Brits remembered they didn't want French people coming over, and then finally in the late 1980s, they did it. This is the Chunnel, otherwise known as the Channel Tunnel if you're bourgeois enough for an extra 2 syllables. Running 30 miles or 50 kilometers across the English Channel, this railway tunnel acts as the only fixed point connection between the UK and mainland Europe. A critically important piece of infrastructure for governments, corporations, and tourists. But this tunnel also presents one huge problem. Its very existence created a legal loophole that could get anyone into the UK without ever owning a passport or speaking to a single border agent. And it turns out, that loophole is also quite hard to close. To understand how this exploit works, or I should say worked until they figured out what can be generously described as a solution, we need to talk about trains. Specifically, this train. Apart from freight trains and a car transport service called Loophole, there's only a single passenger train that uses the tunnel to travel between mainland Europe and the UK. That's the Eurostar. Their tunnel services cross 4 international borders and connect 4 different countries: the UK, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Now, running a train service between those last 3 countries is pretty trivial. All 3 are part of the Schengen area, which is basically a socioeconomic cuddle puddle. All of these countries have abolished border controls with one another, so you can travel between any of them without a passport. The UK, however, was never part of Schengen, even when they were in the EU. So while these borders are just for fun, this border is very much not for fun. It's for keeping Europeans out, because they might smuggle in food that tastes good. Basically, all of this is just to say that you don't need a passport for this whole part of the route, but you do need a passport to get through this tunnel. And at first blush, this doesn't seem like it should be a problem at all. You just let people travel freely along these routes here, spreading their European nonsense as they please, and if they end up riding the Eurostar all the way to the UK, then you just have them go through border controls there. The same way you'd get your passport checked in the UK if you took a flight from a French airport to a British one. The problem is, train stations aren't airports, and trains aren't planes. And the hot dogs they sell on Amtrak aren't as good as the Auntie Annie pretzel dogs they sell at most airports. But that's slightly less relevant here. The point I'm trying to make is that the UK couldn't just do border controls upon arrival. Train stations need to operate at a level of efficiency that airports simply don't, and trying to check every single person's passport as they get off the train would cause massive slowdowns and screw up otherwise predictable connections onto other trains. The other situation with only checking passports after people arrive in the UK is that it would create a situation where people could easily step foot on UK soil without a passport at all, at which point they could say, "Haha, you fools, I was secretly a desperate refugee all along, and now I'm gonna sinisterly request asylum and get access to your socialized healthcare system and maybe have a chance to rebuild my life and contribute to your economy." So that means that passports need to be checked somewhere earlier in the process, before passengers leave mainland Europe. And this is where things get messy. To make this happen, the Channel Tunnel uses something called Juxtaposed controls, where the location of border controls is reversed. UK border agents are stationed in Europe, and European border agents are stationed in the UK. There are only a few other borders on Earth that work like this. There are, for example, Uruguayan border controls in the ferry ports of Argentina, and mainland Chinese border controls, where bizarrely mainland law applies, in a single room of this one train station in Hong Kong. But for the most part, this kind of arrangement is pretty rare because it is about as much of a legal nightmare as it sounds. But here, it's a particularly big legal nightmare because of the Lille loophole. Here's how it works. You buy a ticket on the Eurostar from Brussels Midi to Lille. This route only takes you from Belgium to France and stays entirely within the Schengen area. That means that when you show up to Brussels to board your train, the UK border agent stationed there won't check your passport. In fact, they can't check your passport. It would be illegal under European law for them to do so. From there, you simply stay on the train. The Eurostar that runs from Brussels to Lille continues to St. Pancras in London, and since the Eurostar uses juxtaposed controls, they won't check your passport when you arrive there either. That's a recipe for crossing the French-UK border without ever showing anyone a passport, and the Brits have decided that they don't think that recipe tastes very good at all. So how do you go about fixing this seemingly unfixable problem? Well, the UK did what they always do. Solve the crime by committing a whole bunch of other new, even worse crimes. As soon as this loophole was discovered, British border agents in Belgium started illegally demanding passports from passengers who bought tickets on the Brussels-Lille route, at which point Belgian police informed them that they were all going to go to prison, and the whole scheme kind of fell apart. They tried getting rid of the Lille stop altogether, which people thought was annoying, and they also tried rechecking everyone's tickets in Calais, which people thought was annoying, so finally they settled on the obvious solution. Lock everyone who bought a ticket to Lille or Calais in a single car that's patrolled by special security who can arrest you for going to any other part of the train and watch you to make sure you disembark before it reaches the British border. And that's it. That's the solution that they still use. Somehow no one has ever come up with a better idea, and that's why I'm excited to announce my new reality game show, Are You Smarter Than a Member of British Parliament?, where my YouTube viewers come up with bad ideas in the comments of this video that accidentally make more sense than this actual real-life policy. Now, unfortunately, YouTube's economics would make it hard for me to produce a show like that on this platform. That's why I bring all of my actual reality game shows to the streaming service Nebula. Nebula is a creator-owned streaming service, and it was started by myself and some other great creators because we needed a platform where we could develop and share bigger budget experimental projects without worrying about advertisers or an algorithm. It was the incubator for our other channel, Jet Like the Game, and the home of our craziest show yet, The Getaway, where we tricked 6 other creators into believing that they were the one saboteur on a road trip social deduction game across the United States. And that's just me. There is an amazing and ever-growing roster of creators who are using Nebula to platform their big projects. Philosophy Tube, Real Life Lore, Real Engineering, and so many more. We have some of the most engaged users in all of streaming, meaning people who sign up for Nebula really use it and really love it. Sign up right now at nebula.tv/HAI to get 40% off, meaning you pay just $36 for a year, or $3 a month, and you'll be supporting me and all these other creators while you're at it.